Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are delighted to share different stories about love and betrayal from around the world with you. Now, let's begin today's journey of stories. The graduation ceremony at Boston Financial Institute appeared especially grand under the clear May sky. Graduates in black gowns huddled together, their faces radiating the joy of victory. Matthew stood at the edge of the crowd, holding a bouquet of roses, his eyes searching for his wife Olivia in the sea of people. He hadn't properly rested for 3 days, but the dark circles under his eyes couldn't hide his pride. For years ago, Olivia had expressed her dream of returning to school to pursue a master's degree in finance. To support her, Matthew unhesitatingly took on several jobs: accounting at a construction company during the day, waiting tables at a restaurant in the evening, and driving for a ride-sharing service on weekends. Sometimes, he even worked as a temporary employee at supermarkets during holidays. This life wasn't easy, but Matthew never complained, because he believed in his wife's potential and was willing to sacrifice everything for her future. Finally, Matthew spotted Olivia in the crowd. She was more radiant than 4 years ago, her confident smile and elegant demeanor already beginning to display the qualities of a financial elite. Beside her stood a well-dressed man who appeared to be in his 30s, exuding maturity and confidence. Matthew was about to approach when he heard Olivia's voice cutting through the noisy crowd. "This is my husband. He's the one who made me who I am today," Olivia proudly told her classmates and professors, her hand affectionately holding that stranger's arm. Matthew's steps came to an abrupt halt, as if someone had poured a bucket of ice water over his head. The surrounding sounds suddenly faded away, leaving only the sound of blood rushing in his ears. He watched his wife holding another man's arm, saw her friends giving them congratulatory looks, and noticed the smug smile on the face of the man named Richard. In that moment, for years of hard work, countless sleepless nights, and all the sacrifices he had made for his wife's dream seemed like an absurd joke. However, Matthew didn't immediately rush forward to confront them, but stood quietly, burning this scene into his memory. Then, he put down the bouquet, took out his phone, and captured the moment. If Olivia wanted to put on an act, he would ensure it had an ending she absolutely wouldn't expect. For years ago, Matthew and Olivia were living in a small apartment in suburban Boston. Back then, Olivia had just graduated from a state university and was working as an assistant at a small investment firm, earning a modest but adequate salary. Matthew worked as an accountant at a construction company, with a stable job but limited prospects. They met during a community volunteer activity and were quickly attracted to each other. Olivia was smart and ambitious, but her career was limited because her undergraduate degree wasn't in finance. "I want to go back to school," Olivia told Matthew one evening during dinner. "Boston Financial Institute has a great master's program, but the tuition is expensive, and I would need to study full-time." Matthew looked at the longing in his wife's eyes and supported her decision without hesitation. "We can do this," he said. "I can find more work. Your dream is my dream." And so, Matthew began his multiple-job career. From 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., he worked as an accountant at the construction company. From 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., he waited tables at an Italian restaurant. On weekends, he drove his car for a ride-sharing service, and on holidays, he would work temporary jobs at a nearby supermarket. Despite this, Matthew didn't neglect his family. He always made time to have dinner with Olivia, showed interest in her studies, and even helped her organize study materials. When Olivia first started school, she was full of gratitude for Matthew's sacrifices. She would cook his favorite meals waiting for him to come home, massage his shoulders when he was tired, and share snippets of her husband's hard work on social media. "I have the best husband in the world," she would always write under her posts. "He sacrifices everything for my dreams." However, as Olivia gradually integrated into the environment of the financial institute, things began to change subtly. She started making new friends, attending various social events, and getting exposed to different social circles. In this circle, people talked about the latest investment trends, luxury vacations, and high-end brands, not about how to pay next month's rent. In her financial data analysis class, Olivia met Richard, a visiting professor at the institute who was also a senior analyst at a well-known hedge fund on Wall Street. Richard not only shone in class, but was also charming in private. He showed special interest in Olivia, often discussing financial models and market analysis with her after class. "You have talent," Richard once told Olivia. "You just need the right guidance and opportunities." Initially, Olivia viewed Richard only as a mentor and role model. She often told Matthew how wonderful Richard's classes were and how he helped her understand complex financial concepts. Matthew was happy that his wife had found a good teacher, although after working 16 hours straight, he could barely understand the professional terms she used. As time went on, Olivia's contact with Richard became more frequent. Besides regular classes and tutoring, Richard began inviting Olivia to financial lectures and social events both on and off campus. "This is a good opportunity to build connections," Richard told Olivia. "In the financial world, who you know is sometimes more important than what you know." Olivia began frequently appearing at various social events and financial circles, which often took place in the evenings or on weekends, exactly when Matthew was busiest. When Matthew asked about these activities, Olivia always emphasized their importance for her future career. "This is investing in our future," Olivia explained. "Once I graduate and find a good job, you won't have to work so hard." Matthew believed his wife and continued to support her silently. However, he didn't notice that Olivia had started to reduce mentions of him on social media, replacing them with photos of herself with various financial elites and at high-end events. In these photos, Richard often appeared at Olivia's side, the two of them laughing and looking intimate. By the third year of her studies, Olivia's changes became more obvious. She began complaining that their small apartment was cramped and shabby and expressed dissatisfaction with Matthew's multiple jobs. "You always smell like a restaurant kitchen," Olivia said with a frown one time when Matthew returned home exhausted. "I'm bringing some classmates over tomorrow to discuss a project. Couldn't you at least find a more normal job?" Matthew felt hurt, but he understood his wife's pressure. "Everything will be better after you graduate," he comforted her. "We can move to a better place, and I can find a more suitable job." Olivia didn't respond, just turned and left, leaving Matthew alone in the kitchen. He didn't see Olivia take out her phone and send a message to Richard. "I can't stand it anymore. He doesn't understand my world at all." Richard quickly replied, "There's a financial technology forum tomorrow night. We can talk privately after it ends." Over the next few months, Olivia and Richard's relationship rapidly heated up. From professional guidance to private dates, from occasional dinners to frequent weekend outings, the boundaries between them gradually blurred. Olivia began lying to Matthew, saying she was studying at the library or attending study groups, when in reality, she was spending time with Richard. Richard's apartment was located in one of Boston's most expensive areas, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. There, Olivia experienced for the first time the luxury of not having to worry about life's trivial matters. Richard not only helped her understand complex financial concepts, but also showed her a world shining with success and wealth. "You should belong to this world," Richard told Olivia one night as they drank expensive red wine on his terrace. "Not trapped in that small apartment with someone who lacks ambition." Olivia wanted to object, wanted to defend Matthew, but found herself unable to speak. Because deep down, she had started to agree with Richard's view. Matthew's sacrifices had become something she took for granted, and his sacrifices had, in her eyes, become a symbol of incompetence. During the spring semester of the fourth year, Olivia frequently went to Richard's apartment, returning home late or making excuses to Matthew's inquiries. Matthew noticed his wife's estrangement, but attributed it to the pressure and busyness before graduation. He even reduced his ride-sharing work, hoping to spend more time with his wife. "You've been coming home very late recently," Matthew asked one night when Olivia returned home late again. "Is your study schedule very busy?" Olivia avoided Matthew's gaze. "Yes, it's the last semester. There are lots of reports and projects to do." She quickly changed the subject. "By the way, the graduation ceremony is next month. Can you take time off to attend?" "Of course," Matthew answered without hesitation. "I've already arranged it with all my bosses. I'll definitely be there. This is the result of our joint efforts. How could I miss it?" Olivia nodded, forcing a smile, then hurriedly walked into the bathroom. She opened her phone and sent a message to Richard. "He will come to the graduation ceremony." Richard replied, "Don't worry, we'll handle it when the time comes. He's just coming to see you graduate, then he'll leave. After that, our life together really begins." Olivia looked at this message, feeling a moment of unease, but it was quickly replaced by excitement about graduating and starting a new life. She looked at herself in the mirror and could no longer see the girl from 4 years ago who had depended on her husband. Now she was confident and professional, ready to enter the world of finance. And in this new world, there seemed to be no place for Matthew. In the final weeks before graduation, Olivia hardly came home. She told Matthew she was staying at a friend's place near school to conveniently complete her final projects. Matthew, although doubtful, chose to believe and support her. He even worked overtime to prepare a special graduation gift for his wife, a diamond necklace she had once lingered in front of in a mall window. The night before the graduation ceremony, Olivia returned home to gather clothes for the next day. Matthew happened to come back from work and saw his wife standing in front of the closet. "Tomorrow is the big day," Matthew said excitedly. "4 years of hard work is finally coming to an end. I'm proud of you." Olivia forced a smile, not looking at Matthew. "Thank you," she answered briefly. Matthew sensed something unusual, but attributed it to pre-graduation nervousness. "Do you need help?" he asked. "No, I can manage." Olivia quickly packed a few clothes into her bag. "I still need to discuss the graduation speech with my classmates tonight. I might come back very late." Matthew nodded. "I understand. No matter how late, I'll wait for you." Olivia hesitated, as if wanting to say something, but ultimately just nodded and hurriedly left the apartment. As Olivia's figure disappeared behind the door, Matthew sat on the sofa, suddenly feeling an unprecedented fatigue and unease. For the first time in 4 years, he seriously thought about whether their relationship was still as solid as it once was. He took out the diamond necklace he had prepared long ago, watching it sparkle in the light, hoping tomorrow would reignite the spark between them. However, fate had prepared a completely different script. At the graduation ceremony, Matthew still stood in place, watching his wife Olivia and the man introduced as her husband, Richard. The surrounding students and parents were all congratulating the couple, and no one noticed the real husband standing just a few meters away. Matthew took a deep breath, adjusted his collar, then walked toward the small group. "Oh, darling, you're here." Olivia's face turned pale when she saw Matthew, forcing out a smile. "Hi," Matthew said calmly, his voice showing no emotion. "Looks like I missed some important introductions." His gaze moved from Olivia to Richard, then to the surprised crowd around them. Richard frowned and stepped forward. "And you are?" he asked, his tone showing obvious displeasure and contempt. "I'm Matthew." Matthew looked straight into Richard's eyes, his voice clear and firm. "Olivia's legal husband. At least according to the documents we signed in front of a judge 4 years ago, I still am." He turned to the crowd. "I'm sorry to disturb this occasion, but I think it's necessary to clarify." Olivia hurriedly grabbed Matthew's arm, trying to pull him aside. "Can we talk privately?" she pleaded in a low voice. Matthew gently freed himself from her hand. "Why talk privately?" he asked, his voice not loud but clear enough for those around to hear. "Since you've publicly introduced him as your husband, I think I also have the right to publicly clarify the facts." Olivia's friends began whispering to each other, their eyes moving back and forth between the three. Some took out their phones, secretly filming the scene. Richard's face darkened. He clearly hadn't anticipated this situation. "Listen," Richard tried to control the situation. "Today is Olivia's important day. Let's not make things unpleasant here. Perhaps we can find a place to sit down and talk like adults." "Adults?" Matthew gave a cold laugh. "Adults don't steal other people's spouses or tell public lies. But you're right. Today is indeed Olivia's important day, and I don't want to ruin it." He took a small box from his pocket and placed it in Olivia's hand. "This is the graduation gift I prepared for you. For 4 years, I firmly believed that we were a team, working together to achieve your dreams. Now I understand that was just my wishful thinking." Olivia opened the box, saw the diamond necklace, and tears immediately welled up. "Matthew, I can explain." "No need to explain," Matthew calmly interrupted her. "Everything is already very clear." He turned to leave, but stopped and turned back to Richard. "Enjoy your victory. But remember, things gained through deception and betrayal never last." With that, Matthew walked out of the hall, leaving behind the dumbfounded crowd and the extremely embarrassed Olivia and Richard. What he didn't see was that a curious student had recorded the entire process and uploaded it to social media. In the following days, Matthew moved out of their shared apartment and rented a small studio. He took a few days off, using this time to gather his thoughts and prepare for his next actions. For years of dedication and trust collapsed in an instant, but Matthew didn't fall into self-pity. Instead, he calmly assessed his situation and decided to take action. He first contacted a lawyer friend and began preparing divorce documents. He detailed Olivia's unusual behavior over the past few months, including frequent outings, changes in financial spending, and evidence of her relationship with Richard. Although Boston is a no-fault divorce state, Matthew hoped to take the initiative in property division and potential alimony issues. Meanwhile, the video from the graduation ceremony began spreading on social media, attracting a lot of attention and comments. As the video circulated online, Olivia began to feel the pressure. Her social media accounts were flooded with followers questioning her, and some previously promised job interviews were suddenly canceled. Richard also became increasingly impatient, especially when his colleagues and students began inquiring about this relationship. "I didn't expect it to turn out like this," Olivia anxiously said in Richard's apartment. "Now everyone is talking about us." Richard stood by the floor-to-ceiling window with a grim face, arms crossed. "You should have been more careful," he complained. "Why did you introduce me as your husband in front of so many people? That was your idea," Olivia retorted in disbelief. "You said it would help me establish a better image in financial circles." "I never told you to do it at such a public event as the graduation ceremony," Richard said coldly. "You should have known how many people would be there, including media and institute leadership. Now this video is circulating everywhere, which is also harmful to my professional reputation." Olivia looked at Richard in shock, unable to believe how easily he distanced himself from their relationship. This man, who had been whispering sweet words in her ear, was now blaming her for messing everything up. A few days later, Olivia finally contacted Matthew, requesting a meeting to talk. They met at a neutral coffee shop. Olivia looked exhausted but was still carefully dressed, wearing an expensive suit she had bought during her last semester. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," Olivia said directly. "I want to talk about the divorce." Matthew nodded calmly. "My lawyer has prepared the documents. They should be delivered to you soon. Do you really want to take it this far?" Olivia asked, with a hint of resentment in her voice. 4 years of marriage, ending just like that. Matthew looked straight into her eyes. "You ended it, Olivia, when you decided to deceive me, when you denied our marriage in front of everyone." "It was just a stupid mistake," Olivia defended. "I was impulsive and wanted to appear more successful in front of my classmates." "This is not just about the graduation ceremony," Matthew interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "It's about you deceiving me for more than a year, developing a relationship with Richard. Did you think I didn't know you had practically moved into his apartment? Did you think I hadn't noticed the change in your attitude towards me?" Tears welled in Olivia's eyes, but Matthew noticed they seemed more like tears for her own situation rather than genuine remorse. "I was lost at the time," she said. "I was enchanted by Richard and his world. He showed me a lifestyle I had never seen before, made me believe I deserved better. So it was about money and status?" Matthew gave a bitter smile. "For 4 years, I worked desperately to give you the opportunity to pursue a better life. And your repayment was to develop a relationship with another man because he already had these things. It's not entirely like that." Olivia shook her head. "Richard understands me. He knows finance. He can discuss work with me. While I was just the person who sacrificed everything to support you," Matthew said calmly. "The one who gave up his own opportunities for you. The one who never complained about the exhaustion of working 4 jobs." Olivia fell silent, knowing there was no room for defense. "That video," she finally said, "it's destroying my career prospects. Companies have already canceled my interviews." Matthew shook his head. "I didn't upload that video, and I won't ask for it to be deleted. This is the result of your own choices, Olivia. When you decided to lie in public, you should have anticipated the possible consequences. Is this really what you want?" Olivia's attitude suddenly hardened. "If we divorce, I'm entitled to half of your property by law." Matthew looked at her calmly, not provoked. "Of course you can try, but I have ample evidence that you've been effectively living with another man for the past year, while I paid for all your tuition and living expenses. My lawyer says that in this situation, a judge is likely to make a property division ruling in my favor." Olivia's expression stiffened. She had thought Matthew would weakly give in or lose control in anger, but his calmness and thorough preparation caught her off guard. The divorce papers will be delivered soon. Matthew stood up, ready to leave. I hope this process can be as peaceful as possible for both of us. Wait, Olivia called after him. You really won't forgive me? Even for the sake of the time we spent together? Matthew paused and turned around. Forgiveness requires remorse, Olivia. But I don't see remorse in your eyes, only anxiety about your situation. You're not sorry for hurting me. You're just upset that your plans were disrupted. With that, he walked out of the coffee shop without looking back, leaving Olivia sitting alone, a ball of tissues in her hand, her carefully designed fake tears already dried on her face. Meanwhile, Richard's life wasn't going smoothly either. The graduation ceremony video had caught the attention of the Institute's ethics committee. People began investigating whether he had used his teaching position to develop inappropriate relationships with students. Worse still, the hedge fund partners also expressed concern about this scandal, worried it would affect the company's reputation. You need to handle this well, the fund's chief operating officer told Richard during an emergency meeting. We can't let the company be dragged into this scandal. Richard began distancing himself from Olivia, hoping to quickly rid himself of the negative impact of this relationship. Maybe we should cool things down for a while, he told Olivia during a brief meeting. Wait until the storm passes to talk again. Olivia couldn't believe her ears. Cool things down? Now my marriage is over, my career prospects are dim, and you want to cool things down? Don't be so dramatic, Richard impatiently replied. Your marriage was over long ago, and job opportunities will always be there. What's important now is that we both protect our reputations. Just then, his phone rang. Richard glanced at the screen and quickly stood up. I have to go. There's an important meeting. Without waiting for Olivia to respond, he hurriedly left. Olivia suddenly realized that Richard's interest in her might have been nothing but exploitation and manipulation from the beginning. When she needed his support, he chose to run away. Over the next few weeks, the situation continued to deteriorate. Olivia discovered serious problems with her graduation thesis because some key advice Richard had given her was actually incorrect. When she consulted the institute, she found that the analytical methods Richard had praised were professionally controversial, which cast doubt on her thesis. Worse still, someone anonymously reported to the institute, accusing Olivia's thesis of academic misconduct, plagiarizing an early, not widely cited research paper by Richard. The institute launched an investigation, and Richard completely disassociated himself. I never saw the final version of her thesis, Richard calmly stated during the investigation meeting. If she used my research results without proper citation, that's entirely her responsibility. Olivia looked at Richard in shock, unable to believe that the person who had helped her revise her thesis was now completely denying his involvement. But you clearly saw my drafts, she said angrily. You even suggested I use those theories and methods. I suggested you reference publicly published research, Richard coldly responded. Academic citation is a basic skill for every graduate student. If you don't understand these rules, don't blame me. The institute ultimately imposed a severe penalty on Olivia. Although they didn't revoke her degree, they left a mark of misconduct on her academic record, which nearly destroyed her career prospects at top financial institutions. Meanwhile, Matthew's life began to get back on track. Free from the pressure of multiple jobs, he began reassessing his career development direction. During his time at the construction company, he discovered he had a talent and interest in data analysis. He began attending relevant training and applying these new skills to his work. You have a talent for data analysis, his boss said during a project evaluation meeting. We're forming a data team to analyze the cost-effectiveness and market trends of construction projects. Are you interested in joining? Matthew gladly accepted this opportunity and fully immersed himself in this new role. The job not only brought a higher salary, but also gave him a sense of professional achievement and room for growth, something he had never truly considered during the years he supported Olivia. The divorce procedure was quickly completed. Considering that Matthew was the main economic supporter of the family and had paid for most of Olivia's tuition, the court ruled that he had the right to retain ownership of the apartment and most of the assets accumulated during the marriage. Olivia tried to fight for more property, but the evidence of her cohabitation with Richard ultimately worked against her. Richard's situation also continued to deteriorate. The Institute's investigation expanded to examine his relationships with other female students. A former student bravely stood up, accusing Richard of long-term abuse of his mentor position to develop inappropriate relationships with female students and using their research to enhance his academic reputation. "It's a pattern," the student said in an interview with the school newspaper. "He would find smart but insecure female students, give them special attention and promises, then use their talent and hard work for his own benefit." As more evidence surfaced, including emails and messages showing Richard using his authority to obtain student research results, his reputation in academic and financial circles took a fatal hit. The institute terminated his visiting professor position, and the hedge fund also terminated its cooperation with him on grounds of violating professional ethics. Worse still, people began scrutinizing Richard's previously published research papers and found suspected fabrication and exaggeration in some key data and conclusions. An academic integrity crisis completely destroyed the career he had carefully built. In the following months, Olivia had to face the harsh reality. After being rejected by top financial institutions, she could only accept a junior position at a small investment consulting firm, with a salary far below her expectations. At the same time, due to her academic misconduct record, the value of her graduate degree was greatly discounted in the workplace. Those alumni and connections who had once favored her also distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with such a scandal. Most ironically, as time passed, Olivia began to realize that Matthew was the one who truly knew how to respect and support her. However, this realization came too late. She had tried several times to contact Matthew, hoping to repair their relationship, but Matthew made it clear that he had completely ended this relationship. "Please do not contact me again," Matthew wrote tersely in response to a text message from Olivia requesting reconciliation. "We have nothing more to say to each other. I wish you all the best for your future." This cold but polite rejection made Olivia even more painful. She began to realize that she had lost not only a husband who loved her, but also her self-respect and integrity. And all of this was her own doing. Meanwhile, Matthew's work and life were getting better and better. His skills in data analysis improved rapidly, and the company gave him more responsibilities and opportunities. He moved into a more spacious apartment and began cultivating new hobbies such as photography and hiking, things he couldn't afford to do when he was exhausted from working to support his family. At a construction technology expo, Matthew met Sophia, an environmental engineer focused on sustainable building development. The two hit it off due to their common professional interests and quickly became friends. Unlike Olivia, Sophia appreciated Matthew's sincerity and resilience. She admired his work ethic and pursuit of self-improvement. Their relationship gradually developed from professional exchange to private friendship and eventually to romance. "I like how you see the world," Sophia told Matthew during a dinner date. "You always see the positive side of things, even after experiencing so many setbacks." Matthew smiled and held Sophia's hand. "Experiencing betrayal has made me cherish genuine relationships more," he said. "It has also made me understand what I truly want." A year later, while walking in Boston Park on a weekend, Matthew and Sophia happened to meet Olivia. She looked exhausted, and although still dressed smartly, the sparkle in her eyes had disappeared, replaced by an undisguisable bitterness. "Matthew," Olivia forced a smile. "Long time no see." Matthew nodded politely. "How are you?" he asked briefly. "Still at that consulting firm," Olivia answered, her eyes occasionally glancing at Sophia, standing beside Matthew. "The work is okay, but not what I imagined." She paused. "I heard Richard left Boston for the West Coast to start over. His career is basically over." Matthew wasn't surprised, just nodded to indicate he had heard. "I often think about the past," Olivia continued, her voice filled with obvious nostalgia. "You know, the times we spent together? That's all in the past." Matthew calmly interrupted her, then introduced Sophia beside him. "This is Sophia, my fiancée. We're going hiking in Colorado next month." Olivia's expression stiffened for a moment, but quickly recovered to a polite smile. "Congratulations," she said, her voice slightly trembling. "I hope you'll be happy." "Thank you," Matthew briefly replied, then looked at his watch. "We should go to our appointment." "Take care, Olivia." As he turned to leave, Matthew didn't feel a hint of hesitation or the urge to look back. The past pain and betrayal had become history. He had completely moved on. And this indifference was the deepest hurt for Olivia. The true love and support she once had were forever lost because of her greed and betrayal. Walking along the sunny park path, Matthew tightly held Sophia's hand, his heart full of gratitude and peace. Betrayal, though painful, had also allowed him to rediscover his value and what he truly wanted in life. As for Olivia, she had to face the consequences of her chosen path and betrayal alone. On the other side of Boston, Richard was also paying the price for his choices. His academic and professional fraud was more widely exposed, making him almost unable to stand in the financial world. He was forced to accept an advisor position at a small private equity firm, with salary and status far below what he once had. The man who had once arrogantly looked down on Matthew was now living a life more difficult than Matthew's had ever been. This story about loyalty, betrayal, and consequences has no winners, only lessons. For Matthew, it was a realization about self-worth and sticking to principles. For Olivia, it was a profound price for greed and betrayal. For Richard, it was a warning that deception will eventually be exposed. Everyone reaped what they sowed, whether sweet or bitter. If this story resonates with you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more wonderful content. Looking forward to seeing you in our next story.